The Game & Watch handheld video game series from Nintendo predates the Game Boy by several years. Game & Watch games are individual handheld games released in the very early 1980s. There were 60 of them total, many of which are available in Game & Watch galleries for the Game Boy. This is the first one which gathers together 4 Game & Watch titles for your enjoyment: Manhole, Fire, Octopus, and Oil Panic. There's 2 different versions of each game, a modern remake and the classic version. We're watching the old classic version of Fire right now. The classic version recreates the old school LCD style. Game & Watch games were fairly simple for the most part, but I find that 3 decades after their release, they're as much fun as they were back in the day. In fact, all of the games in this collection are quite addictive. This is the first Game & Watch gallery for the Game Boy, the original Game Boy. I picked this up for a whopping $1. 4 games for $1. That's a quarter each. In fact, it's even less than that because you get 2 versions of each game. So that's like 12.5 cents per game, which is quite a bargain. In fact, I would really rather play this than a lot of $60 releases. We just watched the modern version of Fire, where you have to save Yoshis after they jump out of a burning building. Let's move on to Octopus, the old school version first. The Game & Watch gallery saves your high scores, so if you travel with a Nintendo Game Boy or the Game Boy Advance SP, which is what I'm using here, which I will recommend for traveling because the battery lasts forever and it's awesome, then you always know what score you're trying to beat. These are also just fun games to play whenever. It's been a long time since I've enjoyed a Game & Watch, and I really dig this collection. I never actually owned any of the Game & Watch games, though. They were expensive back in the day, too. The Game & Watch gallery has a simple, easy-to-use interface. It looks and sounds good, considering it's just trying to recreate the original and also update the graphics with the newer, more popular Nintendo characters. It also gives you some hints. The objective in Fire is to keep all of the characters in the air and not to let any of them hit the ground, which of course gets extremely difficult as more and more of them start jumping out of the building at once and you have to balance or juggle all of them in the air until they reach the ambulance. Oh no, Mario's being eaten by an octopus! Ah! The violence in this game is hilarious. One has to wonder if Luigi's controlling that thing, finally getting revenge. The objective in Octopus is to reach the treasure and then bring it back to the boat without getting eaten by the horrible octopus. The modern version of this game is probably my favorite in this collection. The modern remakes of Game & Watch games also have some catchy music in this collection. As Mario robs this poor octopus of his life's savings, let's move on to Manhole, one of the harder games in this collection, as you try to support these characters with manhole covers and prevent them from falling into a bottomless pit of poo, which is what it looks like when the Game Boy Advance SP adds color to this game. That's a mission worth succeeding at. Like the original Game & Watch games, each of the games has 2 difficulty settings, easy and hard. I remember that a kid on the bus back in the day had a Game & Watch. It was a split-screen one. I think it was Donkey Kong. He always had really nice toys. I had a crappy handheld version of Burger Time. Well, now it's payback time. For $1, I've got 4 Game & Watches. Take that, kid I don't remember. This is Oil Panic, which would have originally been a dual-screen Game & Watch game. So they cram both screens onto one here, which doesn't look as nice, but the gameplay is quite fun and addictive as you collect oil raining from the ceiling in a jar. You can only hold so much of it and then empty it out the window to score points. Simple, yet effective. In both versions of Oil Panic, you only control the guy on top, collecting the oil, and then pour it out the window to the computer-controlled character below you. The Game & Watch Gallery, the first one here, is available as a download for the Nintendo 3DS. And depending on where you buy your used games, you may come out price-wise if you download it from the Nintendo Store. It's the Game & Watch Gallery. Highly recommended, and very fun.